Before we begin, let me give you some context to what this video is about. One of the rewards on my Patreon page is that I'll answer questions from the community in the form of video. And today's question comes from Nicholas Cummins, and he says, "I'd love to know how to make cities look worse, as in more rundown, grungy, such as the inner city industrial area. They always look so clean and neat." Now, to answer this question, I put together a basic small town with some large factories from the latest Industries expansion pack. You don't really need any of these assets. I just grabbed these and put together a small project that would have decent frame rate. And as you can see from the cinematics, everything looks pretty clean overall. So what we're going to be doing next is I'll be walking you through different techniques on how to make this look a bit more abandoned, more rundown. Now, one last quick thing, if you're interested in the map that I'm using or in the settings that I have for automated candy and relight and whatnot, just stick around at the end of the video and I'll walk you through everything you need. All right, let's jump into the game. All right, so this is the city that I put together. It's pretty basic. It has a few vanilla buildings. These are all from the European Suburban Expansion Pack. And these commercial buildings right here in the center of the town are from the workshop, except this one, which is the post office from Industries, as well as these large factories and power plant in the back. I obviously only connected water, sewage, and power to the city, so all these buildings are going to be complaining about hospitals, crematoriums, police, and whatnot. I really don't care about that. I couldn't find a building that would match this look in the short amount of time that I had to put together this video. But the first thing that we're gonna do is remove the unnecessary props, especially if you're playing with vanilla buildings. I highly recommend you basically get really close and sometimes get rid of some of these assets that they don't look very good. So the mod that I'm using is Prop It Up. And by the way, there's a link in the collection of this, there's a link to a collection in the description of this video. That's what I meant to say. Let's get rid of Tree Variant 2. That's invisible. Sometimes they appear and sometimes they don't, but I'd rather just get rid of all of them. That bush over there, let's close this and open Prop It Up again and remove that other bush and the other tree variant. And since I've been using these houses and some of these buildings many times over, Prop It Up already generated a file on my computer, so that's why they don't have any hedges or trees or anything like that. A town like this wouldn't have so many street lights all over the place. Basically, these are two-lane freeway segments from, if I'm not mistaken, these are from mass transit. So if you don't have mass transit DLC, you're probably gonna end up with one of these. We're just gonna set it to none. And all we have to do next is just upgrade this. If it's red showing like this, it's because you don't have anarchy turned on. You need to do Control A, and that's how you can anarchy things. And really quickly, let's transition these things all the way over here. Around this sort of roundabout freeway that I have going on, I think we're gonna keep those. Also, while we're at it, let's just get rid of this ugly sign. We don't need that. The way to do that is to create a node, just like so. Now we can remove that, and now we have this node over here. So the closer we bring this to the next node, it should make that sign go away. Let me do it again. You can select any type of road, by the way. Actually, you already have a node that's pretty nearby, so let's just bring it closer. We're gonna go into the parking lot road. I think this one is probably this one, right? So we're gonna get rid of that. And in fact, this is probably a good idea. There's two versions of these. There's the 4-meter parking lot road. I mean, for every one of these, actually, for this whole set, there's two versions. There's one that's poorly maintained, and if you're going for a rundown look, maybe we should go for that. So let's get rid of those. We want to mix and mash. We don't want to like convert everything to one road type, just so you know. So we can have things like this, where there's like a very clear distinction on which type of pavement starts where. Just gives it a bit more character that way. And we can do that. For example, this road over here, I think it's this one. So we can keep those lights. We don't have to remove them, but we can do something like this. So now there's like a transition here. Actually, let's keep that one. Wait, let's do this. Let's keep that one like that and this one there. Would that work? We're going to turn toggle snapping here for a second, bring that like that. So now we have like different patches, different styles of pavement. All of these buildings are kind of clipped onto the road, just so you know. So something to keep in mind if you want to have more seamless transition between the roads and the buildings. The building will still work. It's just a matter of making it look a little bit nicer, because usually buildings and city skylines, they're all sitting on curves. So you end up with situations like this where you have parking lots on a curve. Let's look at this factory a little bit closer. I noticed that there's like 2 entrances here, and also had this road that sort of comes in. So I was thinking of just straight up connecting this. I love these roads in general because, well, it's the first sort of official concrete road. You can see all the grungy look that it comes with, and I just thought it was kind of fitting for this aesthetic that we're going with. Now let me add a few more parking spaces here, because well, people need to park. And when you get these parking lot roads, there's I think there's an extra asset, or I can't remember exactly if it's bundled with it, but it comes with these parking spaces that are basically designed for these types of roads, so you can see they fit like a glove. Now I think the next thing to do will be to sort of add some fences and add some a little bit of a surface painter, just to get things looking a bit more interesting. So let's start with surface painter. If you never use this, it's pretty straightforward. It's a bit of a brush. You're gonna need the extra landscaping tools mod, if I'm not mistaken, for this one to work. Basically what you can do is just paint these basic surfaces or remove surfaces, which is, I guess this one's called clip. You can't change these textures. These will be whatever your map theme is. You can see that it's a little bit jagged. It's like following the underlying grid from the map. It's not very organic, so you kind of have to use this with caution, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So let's go with the concrete one and just paint away. And right about there, I think it's okay. Fantastic. All right, let's see what we have in terms of fences. So fences usually do give that grungy look if you know how to use them. Let's use this. I think this is also from Industries, the industry fence. There's a lot of fences out in the workshop. These are all network based, but you can also add props. I'm going to show you how to add props in just a second using prop line tool. But let's just first of all, let's just add it here, and then we're going to move it in place, because it's going to get tricky because of all these like nodes nearby. But something like that actually kind of works. Still have a bit of a gap here for the sidewalk. And we might as well just fence the whole thing. As I wish that I could just get rid of this. In fact, you know what? Screw it. Let's get rid of that fence, because it's sort of getting in the way here. If we're going to do it, we're going to do it right. So industrial fence on prop it up. Let's remove that. And I think that's good enough. So that way this is like a little bit more cohesive. Just sort of continues the fence. And then if we really wanted to, we can add a gate. Like, for example, this one from Industries. Sorry, this is from Natural Disasters. So we can have something like this. So now this makes a little bit more sense. There's better fences or gates for that matter. So just spend some time in the workshop and you'll find one. But for the purposes of this tutorial, this is good enough. And in this case, I think I'm going to use this. I'm actually going to mix these metal fences that's all rusty, as well as this larger fence that looks significantly more industrial. And these are props, so I want to use a prop line tool for that. And we also need to turn on anarchy on, and we need to turn fence mode on. That way everything is like aligned properly. By the way, I have a whole tutorial on how to use prop line tool. If you want to dig deeper, just search it through my videos. And we're gonna clip these with one another. And now that we have that, we can grab just this industrial vanilla fence and have it be shown as a gate almost. Let's see if I can rotate it so that it kind of matches. As long as you have like a difference of prop there, it will just look like a fence, or like a gate, more like a fence. In fact, do I have drains? Yes, I do. So I can put down some decals. We're gonna go deeper with decals in just a second, but this is a quick and dirty way to have something that resembles an entrance. It's been a day since the last clip that you just saw in this one. And I've been struggling quite a bit with these fences. For some reason, when I was using Prop It Up on these factories the other day, something got corrupted and that prevented all these fences. Like I would put all these fences down, save the game, and when I reloaded, all the fences, or at least the props that use the fence shader, including some clusters of grass and stuff like that, they would just like disappear. They wouldn't be even there. And basically I had to reinstall the game and sort of move and back up all my settings and slowly bring them one after the other. Eventually I got it working, but man, I basically lost a day just trying to figure that out. I was like really not having a fun time, especially because I'm actually short on time to put this video together. But after I did fix that, and by the way, huge thanks to the people on the Discord server for the City Skylines creators. They actually gave me a hand, and mostly moral support, I would say, because it was like basically hit and miss trying to figure that out. But thank you guys so much. Over here, I ended up actually adding a few props just to make things look a little bit nicer. I think we need to add another prop right here to sort of close that gap. There we go. And not only have I been adding props as well as network fences, but also been using Surface Painter to sort of fill in these slots. So if you look at it from above, this one, this one, this one, this one, and this one that's actually broken on purpose. I decided to leave a gap here of grass sort of growing in between the joints. If we add a little bit of vegetation here, we can make this look a little bit more eerie. So the way we're going to do that is we're going to go into the roads menu, and these roads are the 2-lane suburban street alt. These are by Urbanist. I've been using his assets quite a bit recently. And there's a grassy version with trees on the side that I'm going to be using for this example. And we're going to use network skins here to change a few things. So first, I'm changing the light to the industry road light. And the reason why, it's because, let me actually go here so you can see the difference. These lights that we're using here are just the default ones, like modern street lamp or something like that. I guess we can also switch it to old street lamp. Let's take a look at that. Yeah, no, those are like the tiny ones. We don't want that, but I do want the industry one because it's a little bit orange, and I think that's a much nicer look. We also have some orange lights on this one, so I think I'm gonna keep these ones as the main light for all the rest of the roads. There's a semi-bare tree green that looks very interesting. I did tweak the distance between the assets, so we can have something like, let's actually go like 60 instead and update that. So now we have 2 barren trees on one side and 1 semi-green on the other. And while we're at it, let's just convert a few of these roads just to mix it up. And over here, I think it's all pretty much covered, so that's good. Might as well just add it at the end. And if we close this menu, go into cinematic mode, you can see how things are starting to shape up a little bit. Not everything looks like perfect or nice. There's just a little bit of detail going on, and I think that already adds quite a bit. So the next thing that we're going to do is just add some manual vegetation around these places. So I got quite a few of Pedelma's grass clusters. These are terrain conforming. These were also disappearing with the bug that I had before. So let's see, where do we want to add these? So for example here, I added this like lot with fences around, and obviously this is not going to be super well maintained. So I was just thinking of adding a few clusters of grasses just like so. Kind of want to group them on the corners basically a little bit. We also want to add some tufts next to these posts, because like imagine if people were like mowing the lawn here, like sometimes they don't get too close to the edge and they just leave it like that. So you want like larger chunks of grass on the edges of things. Bring that down, and I'll show you what this looks like in just a second. All right, so this is what it looks like after adding a few clusters of grasses of different decay levels. As you can see, we have some dead grasses here and a little bit more green on the side. Also brought the tree line closer to the town just to have a bit more of a closer detail to look at and sort of set the backdrop for this town. As you can see, these clusters of dead grasses pretty much go throughout the entire town, even on this side. We can get closer. Obviously, the closer you zoom in, the nicer it looks. But if we follow this road and we basically head over to the industrial area, you're going to see that I have a lot of floating props here for whatever reason. Let's see if we can bring these down, because I think not all of these clusters of grasses are actually grasses. There we go. And the next thing that I want to do is maybe start putting down a few more trees that will sort of complement the grass clusters that we've been adding. These are some of the ones that we've been using already on our roads here. So I want to add a few manual ones just to make things look a bit more interesting. Not everything needs this grassy sidewalk, but I do want to have just random sets of trees that don't necessarily look in the perfect shape, if you know what I mean. This specific set of trees is very low poly, and it will just add body to your forest or your tree line. So you can just add it like this, and it won't really bring your frame rate down all that much. I mean, it will if you go bananas, but it just adds a bit more variety, as you can see here from this level. All right, so after adding a whole bunch of trees, this is what it looks like. I even brought in some of these evergreen conifers just closer to the city. In fact, we have a few clusters in between the houses. Honestly, I could keep going and add a billion more details and vegetation of all different kinds. In fact, this would also benefit from adding fences in between some of these lots, maybe some hedges even, just to make it look a bit more interesting. But for the most part, this is a good place to start. Also, by the industry just decided to add a few more clusters of trees and things like that. We'll come back to this in just a second, but before we do that, I do want to start adding a layer of decals here. This is really gonna bring that rundown look that we're looking for. So let me see. Let's go into Find It and look for everything that's a decal and also not a sign. So we can start with this decals for dirt patches and sort of dead grass. This is gonna add a lot already. So again, you wanna go in clusters and just mix them up a little bit. For example, here, if I added here, there's grass sort of growing underneath and it kind of covers the path. So I'm not gonna add it here, but I am going to add this patch of dirt on maybe this lot. This empty lot over here. Let's also add 1 or 2 of these. Sometimes when these textures are a bit too extreme or the decals are a bit too extreme, what you want to do is select them, and if you press page down, actually if you press shift page down, it will actually lower these decals down into the ground, and you can see how they're like fading out. The same happens if you press page up, but I'm used to pressing page down, and depending on the situation you might want to press page up or page down. And we're also going to be combining this with some of these surface painted. So let's go with ruined, which is the texture that it's basically this texture that runs on the edges of things. And what I'm trying to do here is sort of remove these grass sprites, you know, try to keep things pretty simple. Actually, I do want that concrete to survive, at least on the sidewalk. So I guess this is as far as I can take it without using extra mod. And at this point, we can go grab some tufts again. Let's go back to all here. And let's actually go grass. You know what? Let's straight up go into this menu and look for something like this. Just a little cluster on the edges there, just to make things look a bit more interesting. You can even add some reeds in between and maybe this wild bush mixed up with it. That one actually is too close to that one, but we can have it like this. So now we have this like lot that's kind of destroyed. Let's see. I have some we have some dumpsters that we can put. So we're gonna add one there. And we're going to add 2 that are close. We're going to rotate them a few different angles. And also have some trash. This is vanilla. I haven't used this in a while, but I think I have a better, if I write the whole word. We have these beard monkey just trash decals just to make it look a bit more run down. These are from natural disasters, and it's a trash pile. So we can have something that looks like this. Looks pretty interesting. We can also combine it with a little bit of trash decals. And there's like an appliance. Yeah, this one. It's a pile of scrapped appliances. So we could have something like this. You want to rotate them so they don't look too repetitive. So this is one way to make a lot look not very well kept. Now let me go to a situation like this where you have a patch of concrete. In this case, we already have expansion joints from the theme, the map theme. But this is I usually don't have this on my maps, my map themes. I try to pick textures that don't have any sort of detail whatsoever that marks directions of things. So if that's the case with you, you should go get the concrete expansion joints by Beard Monkey as well. Primarily, I like the ones that have grass sort of growing within. This is like very hard to see unless I zoom in real close. But you can sort of recreate these expansion joints all the way over here. And you can, well, in this case, I'm basically pasting them over the existing expansion joints. But if this was like a plain texture, I would just run them probably straight to the building for better looks. I can even add it like here, for example, just to break things up. And even there, and even here. And you can see how we're like already adding quite a bit of detail to this otherwise dull texture. Now, what I want to do next for like the final touch is add tufts sort of growing in between the joints. They are kind of floating above, which I'm not a huge fan of, but they will look better once you are a little bit zoomed away. Actually, if I search for damage, there we go. This is a much better crack. So usually this one has a pretty straight line on one side. So what I want to do is just want to align it to that line. And that already looks pretty good. Sometimes this comes off a little bit too strong. So I want to select it and go, shift page down to like lower the opacity. And that way you end up with a much more gentle look. But what I'm going to do next is adding a few more decals all over this town and the industry as well. And then I'll walk you through some of the things that I did. All right, you're back. All right, so I added a few decals here and there. Let me show you some of what I did. By the way, let's just actually start the simulation. I did put some effort into having a city that runs and doesn't have any problems. So I put down a school, a police station. I even put down a small clinic. All of the vehicles are defaults. I'm not running advanced vehicle options to be able to remove some of the ugly cars, like this one, for example. I also have the power lines stretching across this main street. I try to align them with some of the existing light posts that we had. And as you can see, we have all these decals and grass tufts growing in between the concrete expansion joints. For example, this restaurant, this Sally's, it's has kind of fallen in disrepair a little bit. We do have some customers parking here, but it doesn't look great. I'm afraid. And also used a little bit of a surface painter to sort of roughen up the surface here in the center median. And we also have some bushes and some dead trees pretty much all throughout this area of the map. One more thing I'd added is this incinerator. Just basically clipped it against, what building is this? The geothermal power plant. This is from Industries, if I'm not mistaken. These two buildings kind of look alike, and they also have like smokestacks with, well, I guess this is steam, but this is straight up smoke. So I don't know, kind of blends in much better than if I put it, in a different spot. In terms of decals, for the most part, all I did is just add a few more of these tire marks that kind of gradient the different colors of the textures. There's patches, fixes. There's even some oil stains to make it a bit more rough. Also, these oil leaks from potential trucks that were parked here at some point. And, for the most part, I just tried to roughen up pretty much everything. Here we have the two textures that meet as a sharp line, but in order to blend them in a bit better, I used this wear decals, actually. to sort of soften the transition between the two textures. I also added some props, some construction material, some rubble. These are all from natural disasters. These are all vanilla, except these pipes. These pipes are beer monkeys. Now, the final touch that I did here is just I added this abandoned farm. I think it's an asset. It's vanilla 100%. It's not part of any DLC as far as I can remember. And also put down some trucks. These are all vanilla trucks as well that are just there in the grass, rotten, pretty much. And I think that's pretty much it, at least for this part. There's one last thing that I want to do. So I was just looking at some of these walls, primarily these two white walls, and I don't know, they look a little bit too clean for my taste. So I gathered some graffiti art from the workshop, and I figured, you know, let's just add a few of these against this wall just to make it look a bit rougher. This is the last touch. Let's try a different one. There's some tags here that we can put. Maybe even let's put a few like this. So let's just put it here, for example. This is actually a great spot for it. Do want to put a few more of these smaller tags next to other things. What about this wall? This wall could use some tags as well. It's the first time I'm actually doing graffiti at this scale. Now, the last thing that I want to do is we can put some billboards, and all I have is the Chirp Coin billboards that are actually pretty cool because they're all already looking kind of destroyed a little bit. So let's just put it here, for example. We can rotate it, nice, and align. Something like that. We can put a by the dip. Wow, this one is upside down. Oh, because it's like in reverse. That's funny. We could put one like right in here as well. Right up against the window. Now, obviously, I could keep adding details forever and ever. This is just to give you, Nicholas, some idea on how to get started, at least point you in the right direction on how you can combine decals, props, vegetation of many kinds to achieve a more rough look and not so pristine and clean as the game tends to be by default. Obviously, you could also pick roads that are, you know, that have already quite a bit of detail built into them. In fact, the parking lot roads that I'm using already have like a very rough texture, and I'm sure there's more in the workshop that you can source from. But as I said in the beginning of the episode, the light settings for what I'm using right now, it's basically the same settings that I'm using in Night Owl. The difference is I'm using the Cedar Valley 4K map theme, and I'm using the map that I put together for the Park Life trailer, I say, like several months ago. The links to all those things will be in the description, so make sure to go check them out. The map is called The Sound of Awe, in case you were wondering. And this save game will be up on my Patreon page in case you want to download it and play with it. I'm probably going to be using this save game for future tutorials as well. That's why I spent some time putting a nice function and city together. So stay tuned for that. But that's pretty much all for now. Again, Nicholas, thank you so much for your support. Hopefully this answers your question. If not, you can send me a message and we'll figure it out. We'll take it from there. But for everyone else watching this, I would like to ask you to give this video a like if you learned a thing or two. Also share it with someone who might be struggling with detail work in City Skylines, as I actually covered a lot of ground here, not just a very specific look, but just tips in general. Please enjoy the rest of the cinematics, and that's all for now. Thank you so much for watching, and hope to see you in the next one.